So here we are, diving into the second of our series of magical archetypes. And it's been an interesting experience this morning, having the shaman and the witch both saying, speak about me. And the shaman was actually kind of fairly happy to kind of hold on and wait, but the witch was being very demanding and telling me that really this was the right time to speak about her. And that actually is a really interesting thing, because that quality of the witch is something I see show up a lot in the people I know who carry that archetype. But I've said to the witch, hold on, there's a reason I want to do the shaman next, and I'll come to you afterwards. And if any of you are watching and thinking, oh my goodness, what is she talking about? She's talking about archetypes like they are literally other people talking to her. The good news is, this is actually a really good test. This likely means you are a muggle. Great, nothing wrong with that. We need muggles too. So likely that means you're a muggle and this magical worldview isn't for you, and no wrong making there. If it isn't, it isn't. I'm the last person to try and convince anyone of anything. Or it may mean that you actually do carry the shaman archetype. I'll explain why that is the case in a moment. But you're either kind of like the least magical or potentially the most magical. So make of that what you will. So if you're still watching and I haven't already scared you off, the reason I wanted to talk about magical archetype of the shaman particularly today is that it's the oldest of the magical archetypes. It's the original magical archetype that we know of in terms of, human history. And because of that, it really can act like the first principles of all the other magical archetypes. It's very revealing of how magic actually works, how we can be a channel for spirit, how we can work with other people in a healing capacity. All of the other magical archetypes are coming from that original blueprint, that original pattern of how human beings can work with magic via the traits of the magical archetypes. So this means that if you're any of the other magical archetypes, or I sometimes say for short, if you're any of the other magical archetypes, the truth is it's more the case that your soul chose to embody a magical archetype, but for shorthand, I may well say if you are a magical archetype, you likely will hear aspects of yourself in the description of the shaman for this reason. It's because you will share qualities of the shaman because it is the pattern for all the other magical archetypes. The other thing to know is, if you are majority shaman in terms of that is the majority archetype, you will also have access to most, even potentially all, of the other magical archetypes. So as we go through the series, you may hear aspects of yourself in all of the others, and it's for this reason. All of them came from this original root. One final thing I'll say, and what I'm about to say applies to all of the other magical archetypes too. It just seems a particularly apt place to talk about this. If your soul came here with the choice to embody the shaman archetype, it absolutely does not mean you need to be a shaman in what anyone else would recognize as a shaman. You don't need to call yourself a shaman. You don't need to do shamanic work. Really important thing to recognize. And again, this is true for all of the other magical archetypes too. It's an archetype. It comes with particular qualities and gifts. It does not mean you then have to be the stereotype. It is an archetype, not a stereotype. So speaking personally, the shaman is my, strongest. It's hard to even say strongest because there's other aspects that I express more, but it is my primary archetype. And I don't call myself a shaman. Much of the work I do isn't typical shamanic work. And so that's an example. I can give you another example of the priestesses we've taught. We've got some priestesses who absolutely are doing a priestess role in their community. They are presiding over ceremonies and circles. And we have, for example, another priestess who is a priestess of her kind of growing community. She is leading a community farm, and she is a priestess of the land and of that growing community. So would they think she's a priestess? No, but she absolutely carries the gifts and the qualities of the priestess archetype. So it's really important to know when you're listening to this series, it could sound as though I'm saying, therefore, if you are resonating with, for example, the priestess archetype, you then need to go and train and be a priestess. It really isn't. It's about allowing yourself to be your unique medicine and harness the power of the particular archetype your soul chose. So again, that goes for all of them. And in some ways, this would have been the right video to start with. The reason I didn't was because the sage was really asking me to speak about that yesterday. And the reason I listened to the sage and said to the witch, no, hang on, is because I'm getting chills as I say this. The sage rarely will demand. The sage will be the last person to say, like, please speak about me, please help me. They tend to be the ones that will kind of like wait and hope they'll be noticed. And so the way that the sage was speaking to me yesterday, I was just like, oh my goodness, yeah, I'm going to really honour that ask. And that's why I spoke about the sage yesterday. But today, we really do need to focus on the shaman for all the reasons I've just said. So, the shaman, and I'm going to be honest, I'm biased because again, this is my primary archetype, but I also know enough other souls who have chosen that as their primary archetype to speak more broadly. But I'm going to admit, like, again, from the outset, I'm biased because it is my kind of majority experience. So those of us who have come here to embody the shaman, we often had experiences as a child that frightened the life out of us. We have much less capacity than the other magical archetypes to close ourselves to spirit. So we would have had spirit bursting through our bodies in all kinds of frightening ways. We're talking personally, that showed up in things like kind of outer body experiences, visions, hallucinations, all kinds of things. And I know the same is true. And it can be either come in that form of like just scary experiences, or this tendency to be almost like 1 foot in the world of spirit, where there is this seeking the understanding of the mysteries of life, spending a lot of time by themselves, a lot of time in nature. And so the experience of those of us with the shaman archetype is quite different right from the get-go. Often also, they are, again, because they're the kind of the extreme of the magical archetypes, they're the ones that fit in least well. They're the ones who are kind of weirdest, being honest. So the opposite end of the spectrum to the sages I spoke to yesterday, the sages fit in beautifully. They may not have that experience of themselves for the reasons I've said yesterday. If you didn't catch that yesterday, go listen to that one. They might not feel that they fit in beautifully, but they actually do. They have this really beautiful down-to-earth quality about them where they are really liked by other people. The shamans aren't. They are the weirdest and the most, the real kind of square pegs in the round hole. And so for this reason, they often will have also been bullied as children and also sometimes as adults too, for example, in the workplace. So as they then grow up, they have this combination of experience of firstly, doing everything they can to dissociate and close down so they can appear to be the least magical, the most skeptical, the most like, it's a load of BS, I don't want any part of that. And that was certainly my experience. Some of them are, I was probably, again, the extreme end of being closed because I was scared to death. Other shaman archetypes I know have been kind of stayed a little bit open, but definitely not to the extent that they actually came here for. They also, because they have this access to a lot of the other archetypes, they have a chameleon-like quality to them. And so they have this sense of, I don't really know who I am or what I'm here for. And just to be clear, again, because all the other magical archetypes share aspects of the shaman, that it can be true for other magical archetypes too, this sense of like, I feel like I'm here for something else, I don't really know who I am. For the shaman archetypes, that will be turned up to 11. There will be this real sense of like, I could be any number of things. And often they do have a very wide range of skills and talents that could be turned to other things. In some ways, in fact, I spoke to a shaman archetype chap yesterday, and he actually said it like, I feel like I'm a victim to my own success. So he has incredibly successful business doing something distinctly unmagical, and it's a really good reason not to be the medicine he came here to be. So often they'll have found a way to be really successful in the mundane world, and again it's a way of not being who they came here to be. What else can I say about the shaman? So this interesting quality of the self-doubt is that because they're so like, you know, riddled with fear, and also this doubt of like, I don't even really know who I'm meant to be, other people look at them and just think, what on earth? Like, just get out there and be your medicine yesterday. Like, what's wrong with you? And yet they have this sense of like, well, I'm not ready, I don't know enough, I don't really understand who I am, what I'm here to do, and therefore I'll study more. They often have this quality of obsessively seeking. I've mentioned this before too. This is also again true for the other magical archetypes. Often we are neurodivergent. I would say the shamans are the most likely to show, either be autistic or show autistic traits. I'm autistic myself, and I notice that's the quality I see most in fellow shaman archetypes. So yes, that's the struggle and the challenge that is very real for us shaman archetypes. And when we have the opportunity to discover who we really are and become our medicine, we discover that all of the experiences we've had, all of the gifts that we have, all of the openings that we have a purpose. They are here for good reason, so that we can be our medicine. And so a kind of really easy way to understand the shaman's role is we have 1 foot in the human realm and 1 foot in the spirit realm, and we are mediating between them. And I'm not going to say like, therefore all shamans are Librans, but weirdly quite a lot of us are. And I'm a Libran myself, my shamanic teacher is a Libran too. And we often have this very kind of impartial, open-minded way of seeing other people and seeing the world. It's like we can understand all other opinions, all other views. We don't have very much in the way of judgment, but of course the way shadow works, sometimes we can be the most judgmental. But when we're in our natural state, we are very unjudgmental and able to see both sides, so that we can play this role of balancing and mediating between the two, which could be between one human and one spirit. It could be between a whole community and the equivalent in the spirit world. It could be sometimes between 2 people, but we have this natural mediating presence. Part of the conversation I had with the chap I mentioned earlier, who has a strong shaman archetype, he spoke so beautifully of him as a 5-year-old and having this sense that I've just got chills and tears saying this, because when he said it, I was like, that makes so much sense to me. He had a vision of himself as a 5-year-old, and this was actually the sense he had of himself as a 5-year-old, of holding 2 plates, a plate filled with light and a plate filled with dark. And that is the shaman. They can hold both and hold them equally, love them equally, know they both have their place. They are the storytellers. They are the ones that are often very, very connected to the earth. Again, that's required. They need this deep love of the earth to also then be able to have that role of mediating with spirit, so that they can do that with, again, that deep care and the deep love. They can have a really strong ability to dissociate, which, as I say, was kind of used to protect them in most of their adult life quite often, but it can also be used as this quality of being able then to journey shamanically, if that's what they choose. Again, not all shaman archetypes will actually do shamanic work. They very much are acting on behalf of others. The shaman archetypes I know are probably, I was checking to see what I'm about to say is true, I would say the most service orientated of the magical archetypes. They have this very clear sense, I'm here to do work on behalf of others, because again, that is the shaman's role, to act on behalf of their community. So they'll have this sense of, I'm here on behalf of others to do something. Is there anything else I would like to say about the shaman archetype? I think that's the main things. And again, if you're recognizing yourself in this, you're going to probably have a sense of, I don't want this to be me, because it isn't an easy archetype to embody for all the reasons I've said. What I will say is, it has truly been the most rewarding experience of my whole life to finally be able to be who I came here to be. That's again true for all of the magical archetypes, but for the reasons I've said, when who you are has been such a battle for so much of your life, being able to finally step into it as a gift is the most wonderful, magical thing of all.